The topic is the life of R.H. Boyd and his times. And of course, we're talking to Dr. Bobby Lovett from Tennessee State University, who is the author of a book called How It Came to Be, dealing with the Boyd family. And of course, Dr. Lovett, you talked about the establishment of the National Baptist Publishing Board. And we also understand that Dr. R.H. Boyd was involved in a number of other entrepreneurial activities.
Right.
And why don't you sort of give us an overview in terms of some of the things that he was involved in?
R.H. Boyd arrived in Nashville in November of 1895 and established the National Baptist Publishing Board, which officially had its first quarter in January of 1896. The reason he did is because African Americans had to depend upon other companies to print their Sunday school literature. Company out of Philadelphia, which was the American Baptist Publication Society, and they also depended upon the Southern Baptist Convention, their publishing house. He was in Nashville. So he thought that African Americans should have their own images on that literature and have their own views about Christianity and Sunday school lessons. But he also started a lot of other companies, along with other African American leaders here in Nashville. In 1905, they founded Citizens Bank. And as few people know, Citizens Bank in Nashville, which has 3 branches in the city. Citizens Bank is the oldest continuous operating African American bank in the country. It goes back to 1905. But he also started the National Baptist Negro Dolls Club. They sold black dolls because they argued that African American children should have toys that reflect their image. And so he formed the Negro Doll Company, National Negro Doll Company.
You know, that's a curious thing, Dr. Lovett, because I think a lot of us think that only in the 1960s do we get these African images and whatever. But you're telling us R.H. Boyd and others were thinking
at the turn of the 20th century. They had the National Negro Doll Company, which you can see pictures of in the Nashville Globe. And he also started the National Baptist Church Supply Company, and that was to put African Americans to work building cabinets and church furniture. They sold organs and all sorts of things. And black craftsmen made a lot of these particular products here in Nashville. And they, along with others, formed the Union Transportation Company in the spring of 1905. And that company was formed because Tennessee passed a Jim Crow law in March of 1905 that said African Americans had to ride on the back of the streetcars. So they boycotted the Nashville streetcars and formed their own streetcar company. And they bought electric streetcars that from St. Louis and Tarrytown, New York. And they had 5 routes here in Nashville where blacks operated their own streetcars as a part of that particular boycott. And also, Boyd and his son formed the Globe Publishing Company, and the Globe newspaper was published from 1905 to January 1959, and it was the major weekly black newspaper here. It was started because you couldn't get any news in the Banner and the Tennessean and the local newspapers, and he argued that, of course, African Americans should be their own journalists, and they should control their own news as to what they wanted to consume and also what they wanted to distribute. And so he was an entrepreneur.
He was an extraordinary
he was a businessman.
Yes,
he was a Renaissance man. Yes.
Became involved in almost all aspects of the African experience.
Right. He believed, you know, there's no separation between church and business. Churches should promote African American business, and African American businesses should be a part of the religious community as well. So he really was a man way ahead of his time.
Really was.
And that's what the book is about. And he also formed the National Baptist Sunday School Congress, which still operates. And this summer, let me see, it will be 103 years old. It's always held in June. And June is a traditional holiday for African Americans, especially down in Texas, where he came from, because that's when they celebrated Juneteenth.
Very good.
And June 25th was Emancipation Day, 1865, for a lot of black Texans. And so when they do the Sunday School Congress, they do it in June. Still 103 years later, they still do it. And it will be held down in Dallas this time, I believe.
I would imagine that's also probably the longest African American conference as
That
well.
is the longest Sunday School Congress in the country that is African American. You know, the Chautauqua movement, you know, out of New York went back into the 1880s and so on. But this is the oldest one African American around, and it's still one of the most viable of the Sunday School Congresses for blacks that's held today. Thousands and tens of thousands attend.
And all of this was done in a period of really intense separation and segregation against the African.
It was done in the height of Jim Crow, Jim Crow legal racial segregation. And of course, African Americans were forced to create a world within a world because they were shut out of the larger part of American society. So he was one of those leaders who said, well, you got to create your own businesses, you got to create your own streetcar company, you got to create your own newspaper company, your own bank, you know, you got to, you know, do it yourself. So he was a man about self-help and self-promotion, you know. And it was a very dynamic time for African Americans because they came just a generation out of slavery and found themselves less dependent upon the larger society.
Isn't it? Yeah, that's right. Now, his son was R.H. Boyd. What was his son?
His son was Henry Allen Boyd.
Henry Allen Boyd.
He was born in Texas, and when his father died in 1922, he became head of the National Baptist Publishing Board and remained head until he passed away in 1959.